Also,
do say a lot.
What does it mean when someone's a waste man?
It's someone who wastes your time.
Yeah, I just had never heard that phrase before, but it makes me feel better that Tashai hadn't either.
It's a waste man. I would assume it was someone who worked in like
public works.
I'm like, oh, he works for the city. Okay.
Yeah.
But I thought,
is he in the union? Amazing. Greetings, Internet, and welcome to Only Lovers Book Club. We are three Latinx besties that read romance every month, and we take turns picking a book that speaks to us. This month, it's my turn, and sorry, my dog decided to sit right next to my laptop. There we go. This month was my turn, and I picked On Rotation by Shirlene Obuobi. Fix this if I didn't say that right. Here's the cover. She's real cute. And we're going to be talking about the book, talking about the plot, talking about the relationships. But first, we're going to be talking about what we're wearing, if we're drinking anything fun, if we have anything fun going on in our backgrounds, which we usually do. So I'll start off with Chris. Chris, is there anything you're drinking? Are you eating? Are you wearing anything fun? Let the internet know what you got going on if they're listening instead of looking at us today.
Hello, Internet. I am wearing some scrubs lent to me by my sister, who is an excellent speech language pathologist. If you need services, hit me up in the comments or the DMs. Yeah, so I have like a messy bun. I'm trying to channel like med student, like stressed out med student vibes. So I have like a little bit of a messy bun, pineapple situation at the top, some green scrubs. I've got a coffee mug, and so I'm still having coffee. It's the morning here in California. So is it? Yeah, it's still morning. It's still an AM. It says, you already have what it takes, like a motivational coffee mug. And my background is Sacred Heart Hospital from the show Scrubs, because okay. I have a Janita. If you're listening or watching this, I'm sorry. I have watched a lot of Scrubs, but I wouldn't say I'm a fan of Scrubs, that I like Scrubs. I just happened to watch a lot of that show because it was just on Comedy Central a lot. I'm not like a Zach Braff fan, so I like, even though I watched it, I still like actually detest it and him. Okay, anyway, but this is the one show that I have that's like colors most of my like imagination when it comes to like med students on rotation or whatever. So that's why I chose it. I don't watch Grey's Anatomy. I didn't watch ER. That is the other person in this household watches all that, the drama. I was watching the comedy / drama. And yeah, that's it. That's all I've got. On to you, Andrea.
Well, now that you bring up TV shows, Shaka and I actually just watched the pilot for a new medical show that started like this week. There's only like 2 episodes out so far. It's called St. Denis Medical, and it's by the people who made Superstore. I don't know if any of you are Superstore fans. I fucking love that show. It's one of my favorites of all time. And clearly they've got their, algorithm, their format like nailed, because it is hilarious. So if you want a doctor show that is not actually high on the drama and it's just like really funny, and if you're into those shows where like people are speaking into the camera, like a documentarian is there, then highly recommend. It's only 2 episodes out so far, but it was really funny and exactly what I needed today. So yeah, highly recommend. But in terms of my background, I just Googled hospital mascots and a lot of pictures came up. I picked this one with like a kid in a bed with like a giant bear mascot named Buddy, at least next to the kid. If you've read this book, then you know that the love interest like volunteers at the children's section of the hospital, and sometimes he dresses up and all of these things. So that's what I decided to incorporate into my background for this book. Other than that, I'm not doing anything. I'm just drinking water, and I'm just dressed in regular clothes because I've just been throwing stuff out and selling stuff. Listeners, you're hearing it here first. Next Only Lovers episode, I will be back in Puerto Rico, like permanently. So from now on, that's where I will be tuning into. But that means my house is chaos right now.
I applaud you. for finding that photo because that is hilarious. I'm not wearing anything. I put on a little filter with a graduation cap because our main character is a med student, so I'm pretending that I already graduated med school. And I'm drinking a Natalie's lemonade, and I'm coming to you live from our new house because Ivan and I are also in the process of moving. We drove over on Saturday morning, brought a bunch of stuff. My laptop is on an air mattress right now, and my dog will not stop jumping on it and then jumping off it. So he keeps making the laptop wiggle. But yeah, Ivan just shoved him in here with me as if he's going to stay still and relax. But anyway, but yeah, so the house is pretty much empty. I'm on the floor. My laptop's on an air mattress. But we have internet, so small wins. Cool. So thanks for sharing what you guys are wearing, drinking, or doing. Again, like I just mentioned a little while ago, we're doing On Rotation, which is a novel based, like, the focus of the book is a med student who's in the middle of like doing her rotations. She's going through the different departments. She has a meet cute with this guy. And it's kind of like talking about her and her story, but let's give a little more detail. So if you guys don't mind, Drea, would you be able to tell us a little bit about the book? And then afterwards, Chris, would you be able to tell us a little bit about the author?
Yes. Okay. So off of the Goodreads page, it says, for fans of Grey's Anatomy and 7 Days in June, this dazzling debut novel by Shirlene Obuobi explores that time of your life when you must decide what you want, how to get it, and who you are, all while navigating love, friendship, and the realization that the path you're traveling on is going to be a bumpy ride. Ghanaian-American Angela Appiah has checked off all the boxes for the perfect immigrant daughter. Enroll in an elite medical school, snag a suitable lawyer/doctor/engineer boyfriend, surround self with a gaggle of successful and or loyal friends. But then it quickly all falls apart. Her boyfriend dumps her, she bombs the most important exam of her medical career, and her best friend pulls away. And her parents, whose approval seems to hinge on how closely she follows the path they chose, are a lot less proud of their daughter. It's a quarter-life crisis of epic proportions. Angie, who has always faced her problems by working twice as hard to get half as far, is at a loss. Suddenly she begins to question everything, her career choice, her friendships, even why she's attracted to men who don't love her as much as she loves them. And just when things couldn't get more complicated, enter Ricky Gutierrez, brilliant, thoughtful, sexy, and most importantly, seems to see Angie for who she is instead of what she can represent. Unfortunately, he's also got waste man practically tattooed across his forehead, and Angie's done chasing mirages of men, or so she thinks. For someone who's always been in control, Angie realizes that there's one thing she can't plan on, matters of her heart. I feel like this is actually I'm glad I didn't read this. I feel like this description gives away like a lot of spoilers and makes it seem like some of this stuff happens like halfway through the book. So maybe we should put a spoiler alert before I read that description. I mean, I guess everybody will read the description.
Yeah, it's on the back of the book. It's not our fault if the publisher fucking spoiled it.
They make it seem like all this happens before she meets him, but actually she meets him and then. Anyway.
Yeah, even the thing with the friend, like that's not a thing you expect to happen.
Yeah. I think the nitty-gritty of it is all here. It is a little.
Yeah. No, it is. I just feel like this gives away more than it needed to, in my opinion. But yeah, that's not on the author. That's, their
Oh,
right. It's my turn. Okay. Sorry. I was just rereading it and like I was reading while you were I was reading while you were saying it, and I was following along and I'm like,
also, what does it mean when someone's a waste man?
It's someone who wastes your time.
But that's like a saying.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, that guy's such a waste man.
Never heard that before.
Yeah. To me, it sounds like get out. Like it's that vibe of like.
Yeah, I just had never heard that phrase before, but it makes me feel better that Tashai hadn't either. So it's
okay.
If someone told me he's a waste man, I would assume it was someone who worked in like
public works.
I'm like, oh, he works for the city. Okay.
Yeah. But I thought,
is he in the union? Amazing.
Okay, cool. So about the author, Shirlene Obuobi is a Ghanaian American physician, cartoonist, and author who grew up in Chicago, Illinois, Hot Springs, Arkansas, and the Woodlands, Texas. She is a monthly contributor to the Washington Post's Well Plus Being section, I guess it's well-being section, and is completing her cardiology fellowship. She lives in Chicago, Illinois, with her husband, their 3 cats, and their dog. You could find her at ShirleneObuobi.com. He's on Twitter or X, or maybe even Blue Sky. I don't know at this point. At Shirlene Obuobi and Shirley Whirl MD on Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much for sharing. So why did I pick the book? It's a medical book. It's a medical romance. I love Grey's Anatomy. I love it. I've been watching it faithfully. I'm behind maybe like a season and a half, but it's more because I had stuff going on and I basically have to watch it on streaming. Like I don't have TV. But every now and then I'll just take a weekend. I'll power through like 5 episodes. I watch Ladder 19, Station 19. I still have to go and finish that show. I did watch some ER when I was a kid. Like I find medical shows super interesting. I watched House. I watched like all that stuff. Like I'm that person. I'll watch all those. I'll watch all the CSI shows. Anything that is like, even if it's an exaggeration, if I'm learning something medical while there's drama happening, I'm in. Like I love that shit.
Okay, well, you should watch the one I told you about because it still has the medical stuff. It's just also like light. So maybe during this transition period of your life, it can be a light medical show.
And I used to watch Scrubs too. I don't remember if I finished the show, but I used to watch Scrubs too because I'm like, yay, like in my mind in another life I would have been a doctor if I had like felt so compelled to. Because I do think it's really, really interesting. I don't think I have the emotional like flexibility of that you need to be a doctor because I feel like everything would bum me out. I'd be like, oh, I'm doing fine. And then it would have like a breakdown and then figure out how to come back to work the next day. So yeah, I think Chris gave me this book because you won it, right? I think you entered and you ended up getting a copy. Or this
I got it from I got it a couple of years ago. I think from Avon. So thanks. Shout out to Avon for the free book. It's just been a while. Sorry. I got it and it was on my shelf for a little while. And I think we were, talking about what books we should read. And then I had seen the announcement for Obuobi's next book. Because it mentions she's a cartoonist. So I'd seen the scene that she had animated about like her second book and I was like, ooh, this looks good. And I saved that and then I saw this and I was like, oh, that's right, there's like a medical book, who would like this? And so I sent it to Tashai as like a look, if you're looking for something for us to read, I think this might be like up your alley. And then that book that you have, the physical book, I actually bought it at a romance bookstore in Washington. It's called the Romance Era Bookstore. It's really cool. The owner is amazing. If you're ever in Washington in that area, check it out because they're awesome. They're super cool. They're actually like hosting weddings for queer people before like the end of the year. So definitely check it out. But I saw it at the store and then I said, you know what? I'm going to send this to Shai. And then I sent Andrea like a Hades dark romance, I feel. I don't know if you remember that, but that's where I got that book from. So happy to supply the book recs always.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. It definitely is my vibe. I love a good medical mystery. I wish there were more medical mystery in this book and it was like, let's solve this, but I still enjoyed like the process of being a med student and stuff and like seeing stuff from that point of view. So already you got a pseudo spoiler alert, but officially this is the spoiler alert. We're going to be talking about the plot. We're going to be picking apart the plot. We're going to be breaking down what we liked, what we didn't like, what our impressions were. So if you don't like spoilers, go away, read it, come back, listen to us. Let us know what you think. If you are like me and you don't mind a spoiler because you're just in it for the experience anyway, then stick around. Give it a listen. Give a gander. Let's see if you like what we have to say, and then maybe that'll inspire you to go read the book. Okay, officially starting. So, guys, let's start with overall impressions. How did we feel about On Rotation, a novel? likes, dislikes, big picture point of view. This time I'm going to start with Andrea. Andrea.
So I liked it overall. I liked the writing, which is nice because I feel like the last book we read, I wasn't as much of a fan of the writing style. I did like the writing style a lot here. I am a sucker for people who include a bunch of little footnotes. I hadn't read many books with footnotes that I remember, like growing up. And then a few years ago, I read this polar bear shifter romance where the narrator is like doing her she's doing like a research like thesis kind of thing. And so she has the book is written as if it's her report. And so she has a bunch of like notes to herself. And I think that like changed my perspective of what footnotes could be in a book or like in a romance, because before that, I really thought of footnotes as just more facts or information as opposed to like funny asides or like, like little extra comments. And so I was really happy to see that in this book. I really enjoyed it. I read it on my e-reader, so it was very easy for me to just, tap and the little footnote bubble would pop up. So it really, I don't know, it was nice. I enjoyed it. I did not love the romance. I was not really like shipping it, but I did enjoy the behind the scenes medical student life kind of stuff. I just don't know if I love this as a romance, but I did like the writing style, so I would definitely check out more stuff by the author. I think maybe this one was just not for me. In terms of the romance.
Yeah, I feel similarly. I enjoyed this book and I feel it's really hard. So it's like I understand. I feel like it's really hard to strike that balance between creating the world where the romance is happening and then also like making that romance like enjoyable and fun and hitting all the beats like that we want romances to hit. And I feel like in this book there's a lot going on. I feel like we did just come off of like a book where like a lot was going on. I felt like I enjoyed that romance a little bit more than this, simply because it was like I guess it started off in a more wholesome place, I will say. Ricky had to do a lot of work to get me to like him, and I unfortunately I was not never convinced. I was like, girl, get out, run. I don't know. So I agree with the wasteman. So I'm like, wasted your motherfucking time, girl. Get out. Especially because she had a lot of stuff going on. So I did enjoy the book overall. The romance, I'm sorry, I could have taken the romance completely out of it. And I feel like it probably would have been a stronger book. I feel like I don't know if this is true. I feel like, yeah, maybe the intention was always to write a romance book, but honestly, I feel this book would be better without it, because I think that there's so much richness going on with the narrator, with her introspection and just going through all of those things, her friend group kind of like changing, that dynamic changing, her relationship with her sister and her parents and all that, like all those traditions, her journey through like the medical field, trying to figure out what she wants to do, and being in the hospital, being on rotation, going on those rounds and like figuring out what's going on with patients, figuring out what works for her, all of that stuff, top notch. I was invested, I was locked in. But then like Ricky would show up and I'd be like, oh. So I don't know. It just didn't work for me, because everything else in the book, like the romance is fine, but everything else in the book was like much better, much more intriguing and captivating for me. And I low-key wish that this had like even less of Ricky, like I probably would have found it romantic if he was less on the page and they kind of met up in moments where she needed him the most. I don't want to talk about it too much because I don't know what our questions are going to be, but ultimately, overall, love the book, love the medical drama of it. Really, honestly, like I enjoyed reading it, even though I'm not a fan of like shows like that. I'm like, okay, maybe the genre ain't that bad. Maybe I'll give it another chance. But the romance didn't work for me personally. So yeah,
I think her second book is also a medical romance.
Yeah,
so
I do.
Kind of carve a niche,
Yeah. I mean, and we've read other medical stuff before. It's not like it's just not something I gravitate towards. And I do feel from what I've seen of the other book, I don't remember what it's called right now. I'll look it up while we're talking. Oh, that it's more romancy than this one. Like I feel like she would say like maybe this isn't quite so much of a romance, but it is like marketed as a romance. It is published by Romance Imprint. So, I'm reading it as a romance. Those are my expectations. Yeah, those are my thoughts for Meow. We'll see you later in the hangout if there's anything else.
I feel like I agree with everything y'all have said because the romance was like my least favorite part of this book. Like the meeting I thought was done well. I thought that was a fun way for them to kind of bump into each other. And I have a question about that, but just the fact that afterwards it's kind of like they kept bumping into each other, that's not realistic. You live in Chicago, she's a med student. Like there's no way in hell that you're just bumping into this person and he happens to volunteer at the same hospital. Like at that point I would have assumed he was stalking me and would have like never talked to him again. Like fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, like I'm putting a restraining order. That's fucking creepy.
There was a stalking joke that I kept waiting for and it never happened. And I'm like, missed opportunity to be like, are you fucking following me? What the fuck?
Yeah, exactly.
Get a job.
Like, it's gonna be a fucking problem. But yeah, I just like didn't get, I think it honestly lost me pretty early on with how the relationship was getting set up when they start talking about anime and she makes a reference and he's like, oh my god, are you the girl in my dream? Like you're crazy, you're perfect, what? And I'm like, because she likes anime? Like what? Like there's something about when stories get set up like that where it's like she's so different, she's so interesting, she's a doctor, she's like, ooh, oh my god, and she's into anime, oh that's crazy. Like people contain multitudes, so whenever it's set up like that where it's like you work at a bakery and you do like roller disco, oh my god, you're not like other girls. And it's like, okay, people can have hobbies. I don't know, I don't understand it. So as soon as it kind of started on that foot and then pivoted to him having a girlfriend, I just was immediately just like not into it. And then I just like, it kept telling me how great their chemistry was and how much time they were spending together, but not showing me that their chemistry was great. And they're spending like all this time together. And I'm just like I just wasn't seeing it. Like I wasn't really seeing them finish each other's sentence, like, oh, being so on the same page. So yeah, I found everything else more interesting. I would have been more interested in like seeing her relationship with like her family and her sister because of like the dynamic they seem to have. I thought the friendships were interesting. I would have, been more curious about that. And yeah, just like her experience in the hospital and the stuff that she was interested in studying and her research paper, like all that stuff was really interesting. And I feel like this happens to us a lot where we'll get a main character or a protagonist that's like has a lot of interesting stuff going on. Like, oh yeah, I'm writing a thesis on like feminism, blah blah blah. Like, I forget which book we read. The Act Your Age. One of those. It might have been Act Your Age, but it's and there's like, oh, this person's doing this thing that's like super interesting, but we're not going to talk about that. Instead, we're going to talk about this guy who's just there and is like, and even the description you just read a second ago, where it's like, oh, he's brilliant. How? He's a graphic designer. Do you know how many graphic designers there are everywhere? And he paints. Wow. There's art institutes, right? Where they make graphic designers who paint. There's graduating classes with 300
He's
people.
self-taught. Like he taught himself everything. Graphic design is his passion.
I was rolling my eyes so hard into my head whenever they tried to build him up as being amazing. I'm like, no, she's amazing. He's just Ken. So let's stop pretending it's anything other than that. So I'm glad we're all on the same page about that. Yes, take a hint, When Stars Have Teeth, all those books. Yeah, we have so many examples of like, here's this fascinating woman, and then there's just a guy who like has a hobby, has a job, and we're supposed to be like fascinated by him. I'm like, please get out of here. Get out of here. There's too many. There's too many examples. Christina can link to all the discussions we've done on all these books where there's a main character. And I think part of it is like when you build up a main character who's that fucking cool, I don't think anyone deserves her. Like, you have to show me that you deserve this main character because she's really fucking cool. And that's how I feel about most of my really cool friends anyway. It's kind of like, well, who are you?
And on top of that, because we spend so much time with her, you know, we know what's going on internally. I feel like because I knew what's going on with her, him being so unremarkable was like hard to read. You know what I mean? Like, but you know, the heart wants what it wants. But
we've all been there. We're all amazing, and we have dated duds. And it's just, I guess it's frustrating to see it coming from someone like Angie. I'm like, girl, girl, stop this. Anywho, all right, I prepared a couple questions. Let's talk about that because I think we can talk about how disappointing men are for a really long time. So question. I know you don't necessarily watch medical themed things too often, Chris, but on a whole, how did you feel about the like tie-in of a medical theme and like romance? Like, do you think that there is space to have these two things together and like work, or is it hard to realistically portray a romance when like there is so much happening when it's like a medical themed movie or show? Like, do you think the romance ends up taking a back seat? How do you guys feel about the balancing act between like a romance and a medical drama?
So, okay, my knowledge on this is very limited, and I don't want, you know, people, listeners, audience in the medical field, I don't want y'all to feel judged, but I just don't understand y'all. Like, I don't like if the drama shows have like truth to them, they all pretty much follow kind of like the same, like it's the same kind of formula where it's like it's very stressful, and then like sex is a great stress relief, but then feelings get in the way, and then there's drama. And I just could not. Even in the best of stressful days, I'm like, please don't look at me, please don't, just leave me alone. Like, and I have other things that I can do, and so I'm not in the medical field, so I don't know, but it does seem to me like a bit much, like a bit I'm not saying that people who are like in the medical field don't deserve love or relationships. It just feels like this at this time specifically, like when you're on rotation with a bunch of other students and you're like trying to figure yourself out. I don't know. Maybe just like study and like figure it out. And like, I know that's not human nature. I know people want their cake and they want to eat it too. That's fine. You want to be a stressed out student with like breakouts. You don't know what the fuck the x-ray says, and then you want to go get laid right after it. Cool. Like, it's fine. It just, to me, I'm like, I don't know if these should be your priorities right now. I feel like you should go and study x-ray stuff. Just figure it out. I think that because it's such a high pressure life or death type of environment, I think that it's because of the high drama of that and the high drama of like a potential romance and miscommunication and ups and downs. I feel like, right, it's the hospitals and all of that. It's supposed to be very regimented, very, you know, clear cut. We're going to get our answers. We're going to follow the scientific method. We're going to figure it out. And then the emotions part of it, that's the messy part. You know, that's where people come in and it's the wild card. I think that works. And I feel like it works in real life, just not, I don't know enough people to confirm or deny this. And it's not a thing in my life. When things get stressful, I take a step back. I'm like, don't talk to me. I'm stressed. I need to get an A. I am 6 digits in debt and I need to fucking get the placement I want. So for me, it works, but merely as a fucking fantasy. Purely as a fantasy. But I get it. This kind of sometimes happens. I used to be a 911 dispatcher, and like I can't watch shows like 911 or anything like that. I'm like, this isn't accurate. I don't understand this. I don't like this. But then, you know, like, you know, the reality of like being there, how stressful that is. And Let me tell you, the last thing I wanted to do after taking a 12-hour shift 3 days in a row was like go out and try to get laid. Like all I did was a lot of bowling. Like I went bowling on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, I feel. And I did that for a couple hours a week, and that was fine. I didn't just zip down my pants or nothing. Anyway, but that's me. I'm interested in Andrea. What's your take?
No, I get what you're saying 100%. I think to add something a little different, when I think of all these like medical shows that have romance components, which I haven't seen as many as Tosh, but I have dabbled here and there, because my partner really likes them. But I always feel like people are dating other people in the same field and in the same like job. And I think this was a little bit, I think that didn't help this book in that he was so completely out of it, because maybe we would have seen more of that chemistry and that sizzle and that tension if he had been in the hospital as a student, as opposed to I randomly ran into him dressed as a mascot and then I walked away. You know what I mean? So I think that was an interesting choice for the book, because I think most medical media, whether it be books or shows or movies that I've seen that have a romance component, choose to make the romance happen between both, like two people who are in the medical field, because they already like understand each other. And to be fair, I think this is probably more true to life, you know, like you have your fellow students who understand the medical thing, and maybe you want a partner who doesn't and who's out of that. But I think it didn't help the romance in the book, like writing wise, because I think that would have been an easier way to get some of that chemistry and tension on the page, as opposed to really most of the time that they're together, they're just like studying / doing graphic design, like little Pomodoro writing sprints, which is fine, but it just didn't let me get to know them very well as a couple, and it wasn't like super exciting. So I think that was the biggest thing that I think I noticed was just, oh, like she doesn't run into him at work, she doesn't run into him while she's in stressful situations. So
Yeah, I feel like obviously I don't live in the exact same situation, but like, you know, my husband and I work in the same company, we work in the same industry, we work in the same field. We've actually had to work on a couple things together recently that made it that I don't love. Sorry, my dog's chewing on his butt and is making the bed shake, so I'm just gonna do this. I swear, he's just like, anyway. But yeah, we work in the same field and we work in the same company. And it's kind of like there's a good and bad of it, because we understand what the other person's going through a lot. Like anytime he says like, "Oh, I'm pitching," or "Oh, I'm having to like brainstorm," or "We're getting a label update soon," like I know what that means. And if it's happening to me, he knows what that means. And we kind of understand who's going to have to pick up more slack. But the downside is it's like if both of us are busy at the same time, it gets really hard to juggle like our personal lives. Like it's really hard to plan to do a date night. We kind of just make dinner that will get us through to the next day. Like it's hard to have like personal time. And we're married. Like we've been together for 7 years, and we did not work together for the first chunk of that time. Like we worked at different companies. I was like in a different department. Like it was different when we first met. We like were in the same industry, but the crossover wasn't that much. And I can't imagine going through like the rotation process and then also trying to get to know somebody who just like doesn't understand what's going on. Like the reason us going out worked out for us is because if we had plans to do something at 7 and then suddenly I'm like, "Hey, I'm going to be stuck in the office until 10. I'm really sorry. I have to reschedule." He would understand. Like that's why it works if you're dating someone who's like in the same industry. But during this window of time in her life, like I've been on a launch, which is like the closest I can get to something like that, where I was like on the clock until 2, 3 in the morning, days in a row. And I was like, I lost my shit at like everybody who I talked to. So I can't imagine someone thinking that was charming. But I do think medical and romance is like fun, but I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all. So switching gears to Ricky and Angela, when they got together like in the park and met and had the like chemistry, and I was like, oh, amazing, super fun time. Suddenly he's like, oh wait, I'm dating somebody. How did you guys feel about that? Because I have conflicting thoughts about that. I think that if I'm vibing with somebody and then suddenly they're like, oh, I have a girlfriend, I'm like, okay, this guy's a piece of shit. And I'm never talking to him again. And if I ever bump into him again, I don't care how hot I think he is. I'm like, oh, he definitely is like someone who cheats on his girlfriend. I don't care if he's in denial about it. Like, that's what that is. And I think if they had like not ever bumped into each other again, I think it wouldn't be a big deal, obviously, but because they do, and he's like, no, I had pure intentions the whole time. So I was curious how you guys felt about Ricky's like character, because it does not start him off on the right foot, in my opinion, as a love interest for our main character.
I go first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really hate cheaters, and that includes emotional cheaters, but it was very clear to me early on that they were setting him up to have a girlfriend. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be open-minded about this, because obviously, like, when a relationship is ending, it's always ending before it ends. You know what I mean? So I was like, I can understand that, like, his relationship was already on the fritz and he just met this person and the timing was a little off, but you know what I mean? Like, I was like, I can understand that he didn't like set out to try to find something else or whatever. Okay. What got to me was how fucking gaslighty he was afterwards, where he was like, I was not flirting with you. I was not trying to do this. And I'm like, sir, you bought her presents. You were touching her. And so that's what really got to me. I could have forgiven that he met her while he was in the process of like leaving this relationship. Maybe wasn't even fully aware he wanted to leave until he met her. Like, I think I could have forgiven that more easily. But the fact that he was so adamant, and like throughout most of the book, was completely adamant that he never saw her in that way, and that she's out here thinking that all men are flirting with her. That's what got to me, and that's what I found it really, really fucking hard to forgive, because I was like, you're being a piece of shit. Like, this is a lie, and then you're trying to make her feel like she is misunderstanding people when like she didn't. She absolutely read the. So anyway, that's what really got to me, more so than the fact that he had a girlfriend, was just his reaction to the whole thing. I think if he had owned up to it, I would have warmed to him much sooner. But yeah, I really, really disliked that.
Chris is pissed. Chris is heated.
Listen,
Chris has thoughts.
listen here, Ricky Gutierrez. Yeah, fuck this guy. Like, wow. It was hard for me to bounce back from that. To be honest, this is the kind of shit where I'm like, I'm so glad that my boundaries are like super clear. Because this kind of shit would never fucking happen to me. Like, it would start the similar way, and then it would quickly, like, I would never speak to this person again. Because yeah, Andrea, what you're saying is totally right. Like, you can meet someone who is meant to be in your life, if you're a believer in fate and stuff like that, especially in romance books. Like, I'm not, like, the plot needs to happen, the romance needs to go. And like in real life, you don't always meet people when they're like available, right? But what you do in that moment of meeting, of like that, when you feel that, that's what really matters, right? If you push forward and pretend like you don't actually have any attachments, that sucks. And the way that the scene was written, right? The audience knows that he was absolutely into her. They go out of their way, or the author goes out of her way to mention an incredibly fucking nerdy ass thing that is very much like, the Water Tribe necklace, where, it goes out of their way to explain, oh, right, this is like a proposal necklace. Like, you wouldn't just give this to anybody. And if you're like a blurred, a weeb, you fucking know that. So, like, it's flirting, and it was very obvious. To have him say that that was not what he was doing made me so fucking angry. I was like, I don't like this. I was sitting next to Reed and reading it and be like, I don't like this guy. I do not like this. I don't love it. And yeah, I feel like, yes, the author had to work really hard in order to get me to like him. And I just never felt like I could fully trust him. He's felt very wishy-washy to me. And knowing what Angie is going through in terms of like her medical career, her medical school, her family tension, her friend drama, I was like, you don't need this. This guy is like not good for you. When she starts being wishy-washy, I can understand that because she's got a lot of shit going on. He literally has nothing else going on. Graphic design is a passion, and that's it. Now, so it just made me so angry. One of the other things that got me pissed off was that they talked about him like a relationship guy. Who he's like in a relationship guy. He's like a serial monogamist, right? He doesn't really date. He just gets into, and that made me even angrier when I read that, because I'm like, oh, so he is a relationship guy flirting with stuff, like, you know what I mean? When I think of a relationship guy, I'm thinking of like a golden retriever type of guy. He's a total fucking simp for his girl. Even if his girl is like shitty and potentially cheating on him or whatever, like, he loves her, and he's not like, she's gonna end that relationship. That's fine, that's what happens. But like, he's locked in the entire time. But it didn't seem like that was the case here. And yeah, it really set me over the edge when he would try to be like funny, or I feel like he hurt Angie's feelings a lot too. I feel like he was really judgy. Like, he didn't really think about things when he said them. And this is okay. Like, as a character, I fully believe that this is like a person. Like, I believe this characterization. I just didn't believe it as, I guess I didn't want to believe that he was our love interest, because he felt so undeserving. She is not like other girls, right? She's great. She's got a lot of stuff going on. Not only does he not have that much going on, aside from like, visiting sick kids in the hospital, which felt like a bit much, but fine, I get it. But then on top of that, he's just not very nice. And it's weird. The messaging is weird to me. It's like, he's so insistent that he's not trying to date her, but then like is doing all of these other things. It's very confusing. And as a romantic lead, I wasn't here for it, and I was not buying it. The Rickies of the world, do better. First of all, I don't even like the name Ricky. I don't like that name. But second of all, he just wasn't he just wasn't, for me, what she needed in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And even after they have some character growth, I felt like he was never up to the standards that I'm expecting for her. Now, she's a fictional character. So I'm not like gonna get like too like upset about this, but if this was like one of my friends, I'd be like, girl, no.
Hard agree. I literally wrote down, not every guy who's nice to you is hitting on you. Literally, he says this to her after they're having an exchange, and she's like, I think the reason that this didn't work for me is because there were so many scenarios of her kind of pushing him to admit that he was into her, and him hardlining no, even after he was broken up. At the fucking sauna, she kisses him. They're having this moment. She kisses him. He hard rejects her. He tells her that being nice to her doesn't mean he's into her. They're at the emergency room. The kid gets shot. They're having a nice conversation. She again kind of like is pushing him to admit he's into her, and he's saying no. So by the time that happens, I was waiting for the reveal to be that there's a different love interest. I'm like, there has to be somebody else who's going to show up.
Right. Because the way that it's written, the door, it feels like he is giving her an open door. He's like, hey, here are all the signs. We've been talking and whatever. And there's never ever like a straight up conversation where it's like, hey, I'm only interested in being your friend. This is, I mean, like, I'm a nice, charismatic person, but I just want to be clear, I'm not interested in a relationship with you. And then like acting like that's the truth. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't like act like a friend to her. He like is, he kind of like coaxes her almost. I don't know if it's like willingly or unwittingly into kind of like, entering within the parameters of that boundary of like, oh, like he likes me, I'm gonna do this. And he just like shuts it down. You know how fucking irritated that would make me? Like I would go on like a slander campaign against this man. So I would blast him on fucking Twitter, Instagram, be like, do not trust this man with
He
your
gets
art.
like so jealous when she so much as like talks to anyone else, but then is like, no, I'm not jealous.
Yeah, like from a romantic writing standpoint, this he was not it. And what it made me angry because he was Latino. Made me so angry. I don't like it. That's besides the point, but it was also like almost like too true, too close to home. And like I feel we're not meant to like find like these idealistic people in like books, but honestly, like fuck this guy. Like this is definitely like I would warn my friends away from somebody like this. They would have to work. I feel like also he did not do the work that he needed to do. I felt like the book, the way that it's written, she had to work a lot to get to like a good place to like receive love. But I did not think that he was the one who should be like doing the giving for her. And this is just a note, like if this is the kind of book that, Shirlene Obuobi is trying to write, cool, whatever, like that's great. This is not the kind of romance that I'm trying to read or like to get other people to read.
Yeah. Frankly, it was a little triggering because I have been in situations in the past where someone treated me and wanted to do activities with me as if we were in a relationship. And then I would ask, is this going to be something? Like, are we going to be here? Is this really a thing? And they were like, no. Like, no, we're not dating. No, we're never going to be dating. No. And it's like, okay, so then why did you just waste all this time grocery shopping with me and like doing these activities with me and inviting me on these outdoor events and we are going on a trip together? Like these are things that people do in relationships. And if you know that someone has feelings for you or someone is interested in you like that and you continue to waste their time and use them as a placeholder while you decide who you do or don't want to be having a romantic relationship with, that's fucked up. Like, if you are not ready to date somebody who's interested in you romantically, leave them alone. If you are not capable of being their friend without hurting their feelings because you're taking advantage of it, leave them the fuck alone. That was another thing. Okay, so to pivot on that and this like fact that she kept trying to figure out if he liked her, he kept being like, no, I don't like you like that. Angie's the friend group. The friend dynamic in this book, while I thought was funny, I also felt really did not respect what was going on and didn't help the situation because everybody kept whispering in Angie's ear that Ricky was so into her, super into her, pushing her to date him, pushing her to like do these things. And at one point, I'm like, I can't like imagine this being a realistic. Like, I was trying to think back if I've ever been in a situation where anybody has been like, oh yeah, this guy's doing all these things. He definitely likes you. For the most part, people have the reaction that I just had, where it's like, leave them alone. So I don't know. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on the like friendship dynamics because it just felt like everything that was happening was so overly focused on this specific relationship where I wanted to know what was going on with like the friend group as people and learn more about that, not have everybody jump in and be talking about how much Ricky likes her. So, how did you guys feel about the friendship dynamics? I know the side characters were like kind of interesting. I liked what's her face? Oh my god, what's the friend who bakes? Nia. I thought Nia was pretty interesting. I liked Nia's like romantic involvement too. But like, how did you guys feel about the scenarios these like friends kept finding themselves in overall?
So I thought it was interesting because I feel like when the book started, I thought the friend group was going to be a consistent, like big part of the story all the way throughout. like in the book we just read, you know, where they're all like always having like roommate dinners and doing all these things. And obviously part of it is she starts her rotation or whatever, but other than that like initial hangout where they all like go to the concert and brunch or whatever, it's like we don't see these people together again for the rest of the book. Like they do not hang out again until like that very end scene where they like force her to go out or whatever. And so we have like the one friend who's doing rotation also. But then that one guy like disappears. We like don't hear about him again. He's just like gone. And then there were like such weird, interesting dynamics in the beginning where it was like the right, like one of the girls was like jealous of like the other two girls being closer, or you know what I mean? I feel like that dynamic disappeared. Like we didn't hear again about the jealousy of like who's closer to who. Um, so I felt disappointed in that because I feel like I was being set up for this friend group and then the friend group kind of dissipated. Um, but then yeah, I also agree with what you're saying, Tosh, that they were all very like pro the romance. And I think for me, what made me I didn't blame the friend who's like on rotation with her as much, but I did feel it was like kind of icky for the girl who was dating like Ricky's best friend to be like, I feel like it was like a weird dynamic that Angie was put into because it's like, oh, well, you're my best friend, so you have to come to all of these events where Ricky is also going to be because he's my partner's best friend. So like you all need to hang out together and like there's no ifs and buts about it. Like I feel like that was the expectation from Mia. And I thought that was unfair and also contributed to that sort of pressure of like, I have to at least be nice to this like gaslighty dick of a man who like, flirted with me while he was in a relationship. So I didn't appreciate that either. I don't know. I was kind of disappointed by the friend group overall. And I felt like I was really surprised by her bestie like moving out all of a sudden. I understand the reasons behind it. I understand like how she felt and what was going on between them, but I felt like as a reader, I didn't understand the gravity of the situation, and so I was completely taken aback when it happened, and I was like, did I miss something? Like, what is going on here? So yeah, overall, I definitely wanted more from the friend group. And I understand that we're in Angie's head. So, but you know, I feel like there's ways around that. I don't know. I wanted more. I wanted more from the friend group. I didn't want it. It just seemed like no, the only dissenting opinion here was her sister in terms of like Ricky and just like life overall. But then I also felt like her sister was almost like too extreme in like judging everything she was doing, and so I couldn't take her seriously as like the one. If everyone in my life was telling me date this man and the only one who wasn't was my sister, she was like, he's not gonna make as much money as you. So, and also his dad uses drugs. Do you know what I mean? Like if that was the only voice I was hearing, I don't think I would take it seriously either. So I needed the friend group to step up.
I think, yeah, I agree. I did want the friend group to step up a bit more, and I feel like maybe in their own way they did, but not in the way that's like actually like good friends. You know, like it feels like friends you made as an adult, and so like friends that you have like that know you and like a specific chapter of your life. They know Angie as someone who wants to be in a relationship. And so they're like, look, this guy, you know, he might not be like the best, but he's what you've got. So you should go for it. That's like the vibe that I got. And their encouragement of that was kind of like based on what they knew Angie wanted, and not necessarily because they were viewing the entire kind of like dynamic that the audience can see. And even so, remember, like as we as the audience are supposed to find him incredibly charming. So like the friends are kind of like stands in for, I want to say, where we should be as readers, where like we're rooting for them, like we know that that's the truth and he's actually a good guy and not wasting anybody's time. Like we are supposed to be those friends and the friend, those, you know, whatever. But I do think that they weren't on the page enough, and they weren't like, I definitely did need somebody in Angie's friend group to be like, nah, girl, don't do that. Like, you know, even because like for me, I don't know if this happens to y'all. You guys will tell me this person did X thing to me, and I'm like, I hate them now. I hate them. And until you tell me that you're cool with that person, I will not be cool with that person. Do you know? Like, I'm not making up my own decision. And even if I am, I'm still respecting that boundary that you placed. You know what I mean? Like, and even if you tell some of us, they might still remain dead to us. Do you know what I mean? Not trying to call anybody out here. I'm just saying, like, sometimes those feelings run very deep. The roots get embedded into the core of who we are, and that just it remains there. And I needed someone to be the Andrea in that friend group. I needed someone to hang on to that like initial suspicion, anger, distrust of Ricky. So then there would have been like, okay, cool. Like there are some people on her side. I do wish, because we get so much of Ricky again. This is a romance. He's going to be there a lot, coincidentally or not. But I do feel that then that hurt the Nia problem, because we don't really get to see the full buildup of, all of that tension between them. And, did I need to sit through the study sessions with like Ricky and Angie? No, but I would have loved to see maybe the dynamic of Nia and Angie, and seeing how it might be toxic in some ways, and how someone might want space, wants to be free to move on with their life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think like structurally, like it just, I understood it as this is the people are telling me that this guy is good and we're supposed to be rooting for him. But because of the really rough start and then the lack of seeing a lot of the friend group, that didn't work for me either. And I did like that she had friends, hyping her up, and the Beyonce thing was super sweet. I thought that was such a nice gesture. I mean, I felt like they were the kind of friends that go out a lot, but aren't like this kind of like friend group. You know what I mean? They're not like tight. They're like, oh, we hang out, we're cool, we get together for drinks, but then that's it. Like, I wouldn't say that they chat a lot. They don't have like a group chat or whatever. That's just what I'm seeing on the page. Like, they talk when they get together to have drinks, when they have an event, and then otherwise they're kind of carrying on with their own lives. And so it's that kind of like casual American experience, that a friendship that, is a little bit more foreign to me than like my, like y'all, like that have known me for years. And if I'm like, this guy, I mean, whatever, he's a piece of shit, but I know he's a waste of time, but I'm just having fun. Like I know that you guys will be able to like talk me down from the ledge. That's what this book needed.
No, you guys have made some really good points, because yeah, I don't think that I realized how much I expected there to be more coming from the friend group until I realized that there wasn't. And then it was like, oh, it's just her and him over and over and over again. And I don't even really like him because of the way that this has been set up. And then it's almost like when the Nia thing comes up, it's so out of nowhere. And then I was kind of waiting for the reveal to be that like the betrayal had been much bigger. Like maybe Angie really missed like an important day, or like had been self-involved way more then. But again, she's like in her like she's doing her rotation visits. Like she has no time. Like that's what this is like famous for. People get very, very little sleep. So it's kind of like, sorry that she's trying to finish med school and can't come to your like improv show. Like, why is that? Like, you need to have some fucking grace if you have a friend who's going through something that shitty. And I've been on the end of like being really busy and then feeling so guilty about being busy, but there's nothing I can do to
Right.
be
And that's
less busy in that moment.
And you work in like marketing, maybe it's, it's we have an idea. If you watch Mad Men, you know how crazy that is. But if you didn't, you might not have a good understanding of like how someone who is in marketing would be like really fucking busy. But someone training to be a doctor? Shut the fuck up.
Her friend was like, I'm mad that you didn't know I was going through this thing that I didn't even tell you about.
Yeah.
Because like she never even brought up the bakery, never brought up anything, but then was mad that, I don't know. I was a little too Angie on that one.
I absolutely was too. I'm not a fucking psychic. I'm about to be an OBGYN.
Oh, yeah. You didn't learn my friends' names that I just met at improv like a month ago.
And then later on, when it's like when they actually finally have the conversation, she's so happy to have Nia back in her life. But it's like, I don't know that I forgive you because you fucking bounced in the middle of me prepping for these like exams. I'm working on this research paper. You disappear after basically bullying me into dating this guy who keeps telling me he doesn't like me. And then you leave and you're mad at me and you don't tell me why. And then you come back and it turns out you weren't actually mad at me for that, but you felt like shit because you can't make decisions about your own life. And somehow it made more sense to you to like lose your shit at me. I probably wouldn't have talked to her. I probably would have taken some weeks off, been like, cool, Nia. Can you go? Can you leave? I just had a shitty day at work. You're just here.
Yeah, it's just
I
strange
don't know
that
that this makes sense to me. I need to be by myself.
yeah, for me again, like as I'm talking about it, that's kind of like where I'm landing on, where the expectations of the friendship were of a much closer group of friends as opposed to what was seemed like a very tight knit, casual group of friends who go out together. Like, I don't know if that makes any sense, but the fight was a fight that I would expect me and Andrea or me and Tashai to have, or like
Well,
us
that's
to
the
have.
thing. The book says they've been friends forever.
Right,
Her and
but
Nia
like
have been friends way beyond this,
but
like, other friend
yeah,
group.
and we don't get to we don't really, it's not that I need to see the whole trajectory, but like in the small interactions leading up to this big blow up, like it's not there, it's not there. And
Yeah, and not just that we don't see it, but also that I would understand new friends to not have the patience or be able to extend like that grace. But like if you like, for example, I've known you all forever, and if you were going to start like something, a really, really stressful period in your life, like say, oh, I'm gonna go on rotation, like yeah, I might miss you or I might be sad I'm not seeing you or whatever, but I would absolutely be like the bigger version of me who would extend that grace and that patience because my friend is going through a really difficult time that she has no choice in and has to as part of her career. Like she's not choosing to spend less time with me. She is doing her fucking job. You know what I mean? And I felt like that was missing from this relationship that had supposedly been going on for so long and they had been roommates for so long. Like you think that would be the one person who would be like, I got you, bestie. I know this is a really tough time. Like we're good.
Exactly. Because even when like we all have our group chat, and when it's like a rough week, we check in. We're like, hey, like hope everything is good.
hope you're having a good Tuesday.
Hope we're doing okay.
Still
But it's
alive.
like, yeah, like I'm not gonna take it personally if like either one of you is like gone for a week or busy for a week because shit happens and like we all are just trying to do the best we can. So I don't know. I didn't like understand. I one of my like questions was if anyone thought Nia was justified because I don't think that there's like any space for Nia to have the reaction she had. Like I understand feelings can kind of come out of nowhere or hit you really hard without you understanding where they're coming from. But I think her as a friend, it was her responsibility to do some self-analysis first and figure out why these feelings were coming up before she blew up at Angie the way she did and like abandoned her in the apartment, like in the house by themselves. Because like if something's happening that I'm really, really like upset about, sometimes you do have to take a step and be like, why is this upsetting me so much? Like what is underneath this? Because it's not just.
But even if like let's say your feelings get the better of you and you are not able to have that moment of reflection and you lash out, the conversation I felt should have been like, why are you lashing out? Why is this coming? This feels like it's coming out of nowhere. I don't understand. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it was like, are we all
Angie
like,
doesn't say anything either.
she doesn't say shit to her. She doesn't say anything like that where it's like, yo, like I know that things have been hard. Anything to put me, like to set me in the conflict appropriately. So I know which way to orient myself. I'm just like, what is happening here? It felt so, the way that she responded was also like, not as though, they'd been friends for years and years and years, and that she could tell that her friend was like jumping to conclusions, you know what I mean? Or, not friends don't have to be perfect, but you know what I mean? Like you could tell, like, girl, you're tripping. You are tripping right now. Yeah.
If you lost your shit at me, I would be like, hey, what happened?
Okay, well.
Hold on. I'm gonna give you like an hour, and then I'm gonna call you back, and we're gonna
You
talk about this.
15 minutes of weeping on the phone and then being like, I can't get my curls to come out the way I want them to. Some shit like that.
I've also slept 3 hours in the last 4 days. What time did you eat today?
No, I forgot.
I'm gonna seamless use something to eat. I feel like your blood sugar, your glucose levels, they're dropping.
You see what I mean? Even in a fake fight, you would know, okay, have you eaten? Have you done this? Have you done this? Like, because you're my friend and you know what I forget to do and what I do. So yeah, it was odd to me, but I just kind of went for it because I felt like it was kind of like not went for it. Yeah, I went with it because it was, even if it was tenuous, it was the support that she had outside of her family.
Yeah.
So, but not the greatest friend, not the greatest literary friend group that I have come by. Let's just say that.
All right. So I feel like so far the consensus is that the relationships in this book overall needed a little bit more work, because the friend dynamic doesn't really feel legit. The best friend dynamic is kind of lacking. The romantic relationship is like, how did we feel about the family dynamic? Because the parents showed up and just threw psychological bombs and then were shocked when they were blocked.
That made a lot of sense to me. Like, I'll be honest, because I feel like, the character is Ghanaian American, right? And so our author is as well. I feel like this is where, outside of the medical stuff, maybe I can only assume maybe that they drew a lot of inspiration from like their own life or other family members or whatever. Because these people were the only people that made sense to me. Did I like them? No. But they made sense to me because like overbearing parents, immigrant parents having high expectations for their kids and ostensibly like ruining their kids' lives in hopes that they will have a better life. It's like, oh, I moved to this country so you would have a better life, and so I will make your life miserable and make you completely unable to handle actually any emotional hurdles that you have to go through in pursuit of this goal. Seems extremely realistic to me. Like, that seems like, yeah, I get it. I know those parents. I've seen those parents. I've tutored and taught kids of these parents, and shit is hard. It will fuck with you. I like that she kind of like found her strength in, was able to kind of like stand up for herself. It wasn't like a smooth thing, and it was pretty controversial, as always. When kids talk back to their parents, the parents are always like fucking shocked. But I did like that. I enjoyed that arc because it felt like everyone was kind of like being really true to reality. If this had been like a fantasy book, who knows? But like, this is supposed to be set modern day, and this one conflict is the one that I was like, yes. And so when she kind of like says, she goes to her mom and gets her braids done or whatever, I thought it was a sweet moment. It was like awkward and tense, but it worked for me because that setup between them and then that final payoff at the end, it made a ton of sense as to how that would kind of work out. And I was really proud of Angie in that moment. And I was proud of her parents, or at least her mom, for like being like, okay, you're wrong, but I'm respecting your decisions. Do you know what I mean? And I give her a pass because she don't know Ricky like that. So fine, whatever. Like if her daughter is like, he makes me happy, mom, the mom's gonna be like, fine, be poor. I don't know what to tell you. But I support you. And I was down for that.
It is funny because the mom is like, what do you mean you're like letting that boy go? I'm like, okay, that's where I couldn't suspend my disbelief anymore. because I agree. I really like the relationship with the parents because I'm like, yeah, that seems true to me. That all this pressure, all that build up, like all of that is believable to me. The mom showing up to try to make amends was believable to me. And then she tells her mom all the stuff about Ricky, and the mom's like, oh my God, but like if you like him, like that's not true. That is not true.
I
My
know.
mom would
I
1,000%
my
be
mom
like,
would have
good
been
for
like,
you.
my
Good for
mom
you
would
that
have
you
been
broke
like,
up. Now you can
leave
focus on
that.
your study.
My mom would have been like, my mom would have been like, you're tripping. What are you doing? Get out.
You know what's funny too is like in that moment she's like, oh my gosh, why are you letting him go? Like you need to be with him. But then later on they're like, yeah, he had to win her over. And I'm like, I mean, no, he didn't. She was already there. And then they're like, oh, but he won her over with the mural. And I'm like, he won her over by the creepy ass mural of her daughter he painted on a public wall while you weren't even together. Like, out of all things, that's like a terrible. Anyway,
I mean,
And
I'm
mostly-
judging. I could see how it would impress her because like when boys do anything, the moms are impressed. You know what I mean? Like it's like, oh yes,
I feel
talent.
like they
Wow.
set it up in such a way that it was like I was expecting to be the mom. I was expecting the mom to be like, "How dare you paint my daughter when you're not even like engaged?" You know what I mean? Like, there's steps.
I also wait. I laughed really hard when the mom's like, "Oh no, your father and I met in school,"
That was
and
actually,
and then he went to date someone
That
else,
was great. That was so good. She was like,
and
no,
then we
we
got
didn't.
together afterwards. Like,
Why the
it's
fuck
like
you
not lore.
lying?
Parental lore just being dropped. At the
Yes, I
last
do love that. I
second.
love
no,
it when
that
that
I
happens.
found that when I had been told the story of like my parents meeting like many times, and it's just like really complicated, convoluted, like romantic story or whatever. And it wasn't until I was an adult that I learned that. So my dad, the only time, like my dad grew up in Puerto Rico, and but he went to college in Louisiana, and then he came back to Puerto Rico. That's the only time he's like lived in the States, was those 4 years. And those 4 years occurred after that really romantic story my parents had told me. And so he basically was like, peace, voy pa Louisiana. And they broke up, and he just went and partied for 4 years in like a US college, and then came back, and my mom just like took him back.
Oh
then
my
they started
God.
dating again. And this was like completely left out of all the stories I heard when I was younger. This like 4 year period in the middle of their dating story. And I was like, okay.
They didn't want you to know that he went and got his swerve
Why
on.
do
You
parents
have like
do
step
that?
siblings all
Why-
over the place in Louisiana.
I'm honestly
that-
curious.
They want you to
I'm
know.
honestly so curious. Like, why do parents do that? Why do they make a fantasy of like how they met? What do they hope to gain from that? Like, what are they trying to like, like it's not, I don't know. I don't understand. Like, not your life does not have to be like
Yeah.
John Sparks.
Like it literally wasn't until I was an adult and I was like, wait, but so he didn't went to college in Louisiana, but you went to college in PR. Were you guys long distance?
Like, no.
My mom was like, oh, not exactly.
They don't count it. They were on a break.
They were on a break.
4-year break. Anything that happened during those 4 years of time. Forget
I
it.
laugh because my dad's like, I was always in love with your mother. Because my parents have been friends since they were kids in like church. They've been friends since they were like 6 years old, 7 years old. So they've been friends, like they've been in each other like forever. And my dad's like, I was always in love with your mother. I was always in love with your mother. And then I get to like junior high and high school and I hear all these stories about them growing up. And I'm like, yeah, but you were also like a whore. You were like in love with mom, but you were like fucking around a lot. Why aren't you? Excuse
Yeah.
me?
I
And
do
my mom-
appreciate that about my parents. Like my parents' story, my mom never sugarcoated like how tumultuous that started and like continued and then inevitably like ended when he passed away. But but like yeah, and my mom was always like, yeah, we met in high school and then we were dating and then he went off to the military and then he married someone else and I was heartbroken. I didn't want to speak to him ever again. And then afterwards, he got divorced a couple years later, and then we kind of reconnected. And then we were like, and I was like, oh, and I'm like, did you hold a candle for him that whole time? She was like, no, no. She's like, no, I hung out, I dated, I met people, like I had relationships, and then he had to win her back, and then I showed up, yay! So, like that's their story, and so that seems realistic to me. This whole like, oh yes, we've loved each other for our entire lives, and I'm like, listen,
No, I love that. That was like my favorite thing.
Press X for doubt. I don't know if that's actually true, what you're trying to tell me right now.
No, I think that family dynamic is probably the thing that I liked the most. And I do wish we had gotten as much like, I guess, authenticity in like all the other relationships, because that does feel like more real. And I guess it's because it's the thing that's probably most closely rooted in like real life. I don't know what Charlene's husband is like. I don't know what their relationship is like, but no sé. I did enjoy the parental family part of it. I just everyone else was just like annoying. I'm like, why are you all like this? What's happening? Is there a gas leak? Why are you all acting like this? Like the more they kept pushing her into like trying to insist on a relationship with Ricky, and the more she kept like kind of insisting with him that he liked her and he kept saying no. I made a note at one point and I'm like, she's feeling like Harry Connick Jr. Like she needs to leave this guy alone. She's like insisting that he has feelings for her and he keeps saying no, and every time he says no, I feel so embarrassed for her. Like this is embarrassing to read as someone.
Could not be me. Could not be
Could
me.
not. Could not. Like
I would make it my mission to gaslight him right back.
Okay. So I have like one more question. And I feel like I know what the answer is gonna be, but when they finally get together, when they finally like kiss, and it's like a romantic thing, and it's like the switch flips, and she's like, "Oh, so you do like me?" And he's like, "I liked you all along." How irate did that make you guys? Because I'm like, there were 47 pages before this that led me to believe the contrary.
The thing is that when he's denying it, he is so dead ass. Like he truly believes that he's and it's not even playful. He's not like, I didn't like you. You know, like it's not it's not like that at all. He's dead ass. He's like, I don't like you, girl. Well, I don't know why you're tripping. I don't know why you think these things. Because I don't like you. It wasn't coy, it wasn't playful or charming. So when he finally admits it, like I would have probably DNF'd this book about 2/3 in. And I got so mad. So angry when I got there. I was like,
I was angry too, and that anger was made twofold because then like very soon after that they have sex and she's like, I've never had an orgasm like this. Like this man is the best sex I've ever had. And like so then she like it's like I guess it made it feel like, well, of course she's not gonna dump him now because on top of everything, he's like the best lay she's ever had. And I just don't think that Ricky was that good in bed. He did not give me those vibes. I just could not picture this man being a sexual god, like unleashing her passion. Like, could not see it. It made me mad that we're supposed to think that he's like so sexy because he just annoyed me.
I also completely forgot about the pregnancy scare.
Yes, that was also very annoying.
I got to that part, and at that point, it's like, okay, this is the part in the book where they break up and they don't ever get back together. There is no coming back from
enter our actual love interest now.
Yes, now she meets a 4th-year resident.
But you know what made me mad is like, yeah, I think that would have actually been like the realistic end to this book if it wasn't because he just happened to have a really like cutie patootie grandma that she like kept running into in the hospital. You know what I mean? Like that's the only reason. Like that bothered me because I felt like they got back together only because of the universe doing things that seemed like fate. Like she just happened to run into the grandma, and then it just happened to be his dad like dying in the same hospital, as opposed to like
no, there's just one hospital. There's one hospital in Chicago.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? It seemed like in real life, those things would have never happened. And if those things had never happened, they would have never gotten back together because neither of them would have reached out to the other.
I agree. I don't think that they would have. I do not think they would have reconciled at all because after all that, her being like, "So I'm your girlfriend," and he's like,
That was annoying too. I was like, what do you this whole time you made it seem like all you wanted was like a
relationship.
And she was the one being wishy-washy, and then when she makes the moves, yeah, I'm not.
The more we talk about it, the more
I like how we're so exhausted now. We're like,
yeah, I will reiterate. I did really like the writing style.
It's the romance. All the quibbles. The quibbles is the romance and how everything moved around the romance.
Yeah, but I would read a different kind of book by this author.
Yeah, because that's what I'm saying. Like the book is good, but my biggest issues is like the romance and then how everything moves around that romance.
Yeah.
Because he's just not nice. He's not cool. And I think that out of anything, like our main character girls, they just need at least like someone who's like nice, like she's going through so much. The friend stuff, yeah, the parent stuff, yeah, the rotation stuff, yeah. So like why this too? And then this makes everything else seem so strange, And so yeah, I enjoyed reading this book. Literally the only times I was like frustrated was when like romance stuff would happen.
Yeah. Man, I forgot about that. Now I'm thinking about it. Now I'm getting mad again.
All right. No,
I don't know that I want to be your boyfriend. Cut to, I'll call you tomorrow. 1 week later. Oh my God. She's pregnant. And we didn't know if it was mine or not. What was I supposed to tell you? She might be pregnant with my baby. Yeah. Yeah, that's literally what you tell me. That's literally what you do. You come visit me. That's stupid. Anyway. I don't have any more questions.
Sounds good. Oh.
Final thoughts is Shirlene can write well. Shirlene's romances flustered us.
No, this one for sure. I am interested in reading the next book that she's written. It came out this summer. It's called Between
Higher Reviews.
Between Friends and Lovers, and it has higher reviews, and it does seem like more of it was like a love triangle situation, which I mean, I'm still down to give it a shot. I don't think that this would, while I didn't enjoy this romance, I enjoyed the writing enough that I would give another romance by this author another chance, but that's it, girl. You're on probation. And that's cool. Like I know that a lot of people like love medical romances. And if that's your kind of thing, I would, read this and let us know what you think. Like I want to know, like, are we crazy or are we just like our expectations too high for these fictional men or what?
Man, sounds like the comments.
Hey, they don't need to be perfect. They don't need to be perfect. They just can't be fucking gaslighting assholes. I'll never root for that guy. You might, a listener audience, that might be your thing. You might like that dynamic, and it's okay. You can be wrong. That's fine.
I'm trying to think of any like medical show main like men who were like dreamy and not waving red flags all over the place, and I'm having a really hard time. So it might also be like the nature of the genre that
I feel like maybe like Turk from Scrubs is like.
Does he ever cheat on Carla?
I don't know if he does. He's a simp for her. Is he like the best boyfriend / husband ever? No, not always. He's not a perfect guy. He's not a perfect character. But I will say he loves the fuck out of her, and he never tries her. That I remember.
Maybe him. He might be the one exception. Because like I'm thinking about House. I'm thinking about Grey's Anatomy. I'm thinking about like all these doctors that are hot, and I'm like, yeah, but that one cheated. That one cheated. That one cheated. That one's like crazy.
They held some like terrible crucial information. Or
This one's got PTSD and choked Dr. Yang in his sleep. Like there's a lot.
There is a lot. That's a lot. I don't know. Okay, listen, if you are interested in reading other medical dramas or listening to us discuss other medical dramas, we have an episode. It's actually our last live episode, I want to say. We read Passionate Rivals by Radcliffe, and that one was a lesbian doctor drama. They're both kind of like fighting for that like chief position, and it gets messy.
That one's more Grey's Anatomy.
That one is definitely more Grey's Anatomy, but and I want to say that they are both buttheads, but like in a really believable way. And then when they start kind of like coming together, I was all in. I was definitely like, okay, I can see this. Like I can see how this would work. So
Is that the only doctor book we read?
I think so. So maybe it's a genre we need to explore more of so that we can, we can balance it out. We had that one, we have this one, and we just one more. I don't know. We'll consider it.
Yeah, we can find something. But okay, that's the end of this rotation. Would you guys is there anything else you guys are reading that you might want to bring up? I'm not reading anything else right now, so I gotta pick up my next book.
I am just quickly I'm doing two buddy reads separately. I'm listening to Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle with Reed, my partner, and I am reading Dinner on Monster Island for Nonfiction November with my friend Andrea and Janice. And so that's what I'm reading right now. Nothing else.
Yeah, I'm bad about reading nonfiction, but since I'm currently walking to work every day, I just pop in the audiobook and can't close the book if it's in your ears on the way to work.
Lol.
I'm reading Stranded.
Ooh.
Which is a scholastic middle grade that has been compared to Hatchet and My Side of the Mountain, which are both like two of my absolute favorite survival books growing up, but also just two of my favorites in general. So I feel like I've read other survival books that have been compared to those two before, because those two are like the ones that everything gets compared to. I don't know what you call that, when you're like the thing everyone, you know what I mean? So everything's always compared to this two, and they always fall short. But I have high hopes to this one. There's a dog. She's a Black kid, so it already seems like a very cool redo, in the sense that you don't see that many survival books with Black kids, first of all. But yeah, it's supposed to be like pretty survival-y. Like she's alone in the winter and has to like do shit to not die. So
nice.
I'm for it. I am starting it probably today.
Sounds metal as hell.
Very cool. And then do we want to quickly mention what we're reading next month?
Yes, it is my pick. I'm actually really excited about it because it's a Harlequin. How do you say it?
I'd say Harlequin, but who cares? Say it how you want.
Well, it's a Harlequin novel, which I don't think we've ever read as Only Lovers. And I feel like the genre has changed a lot. Like I remember reading a ton of them when I was growing up, because I would like sneak read my mom's. But now there's like a ton of diverse ones that definitely did not exist when I was like 15 or 16. And this one is by a Latina author. The main character, the girl, is Latina, and then the guy love interest is like Jamaican and British. So like two Caribbean love interests, and it's like he's like a famous Hollywood star, she's like a writer, and they're like a mix up at the hotel, and they end up in the same VIP suite, and then I guess the paparazzi find out, and it's like a whole scandal, and it's like a only one bed and like kind of situation. I don't know. It seems like just like pulpy romance fun. It's I should know, it's the Harlequin Desire imprint. So I don't know what that means. I haven't read these books in so long. I don't know how many peppers that is, in the Harlequin spectrum of books. So heads up, I don't know what to warn you for. I don't know how
I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm very excited. I feel like these are the kinds of novels that like they're like thin, and you find them at the pharmacy as you're checking out, and you're like, and your mom's like, no.
Exactly. And it has like there's no cartoon cover. It's like
there's like people, and then later on you find them in the drawer next to her bed, like in her bedside table drawer, and you're just like, huh, okay,
what the fuck, mom?
With all her Sidney Sheldon books. Okay.
Yeah, but I think the author is Puerto Rican, either Puerto Rican or Dominican. I'm not sure, but one of the two. But growing up in Miami, and the book is set in Miami. So yeah, I'm excited. It just seems like a little bit different than what we've been doing these past few years in OLL, and maybe we'll love it, and we'll be like, you know what? Let's start looking more at what's coming out from Harlequin now. So yeah,
Nice.
I'm excited. Scandal in the VIP suite.
Let's go.
Nice. But thank you guys very much for reading on rotation with me. I hope you guys had a good discussion. I knew as I was reading through it, we would have a lot of things to talk about. I feel like we've gotten to a good flow now of like, I'm gonna put a pin on that. We're gonna talk about that.
Amazing.
We'll talk about that later. And thanks for joining us on this conversation, internet. We hope that you've enjoyed listening to us rant about the things that poked us on this book. But we hope that you give it a chance too, because Shirlene is a good writer. Her writing style is really good. Her characters were compelling, if not necessarily as compatible as we would have wanted them to be for our
Well said. Well said.
I hope everyone has a good rest of their month, and we will catch you next month during our next Only Lovers episode. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you for making it to the end of our episode and spending some time with us. You can support Only Lovers Book Club for free by subscribing to our shows and sharing our episodes. Make sure to like the video or leave us a comment, or if you're listening, don't forget to leave us a review. You can become a supporter on Ko-fi or buy books from our bookshop. All those links are in the description below. Follow us on Instagram at Only Lovers Book Club.